back with Heidi Voigt, taking you home, AM 1450, FM 99.3, KNSI. What, Heidi, is a buyer's market as opposed to a seller's market? Time for some going back to class.
Okay, well, this is a good question, and I think you had mentioned you'd even seen some of this on a national news channel, and it's a tricky question because it's all based on statistics, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like anything where you'll hear things on the news and be like, oh, this is a circumstance, and then you see something that negates it.
Yeah.
It's all relative to where, when, who, what.
Yep.
I mean, it's not. It might be a statistic overall, but when I'm looking at buyers and sellers market, I usually orate it in a manner where I just say, okay, if you look at a line and say that line is 6 months, and there is less than 6 months of inventory, it is going to be a seller's market. And if there's more than 6 months of inventory, it's going to be a buyer's market.
Okay, you have to explain something. What is 6 months worth of inventory?
Okay, so 6 months of inventory would be is if you took what we have on market right now and nothing else sold. It would take 6 months for those homes to sell. So, but think about that now. What's going to sell first?
I don't know. I would say, well, I know where the demand is right now is in first-time home buyers,
Entry
right?
level. So, okay, so we take that statistics and we say there's 6 months of inventory, and we don't break it down any further. And in the first 2 months or 3 months, all the entry level stuff is gone. What kind of market it is for entry level people now?
Right, zero.
Yeah. So I mean, so it's there's at that point then is a seller's market.
So
you can't break it down in one statistic.
It's kind of it's misleading.
Yeah. So when you think about this, you look at that statistic. Is it a nationwide statistic? Is it a buyer's market statewide? Is it what does my city look like? What does my zip code look like? And what does my price point look like? And that's what it comes down to. Is it a buyer's or seller's market in the specific price point that you're selling or buying in?
So a lot of variables.
There are so many variables. And it can be very, very interesting from client to client, because I'll have a client, for example, that'll say, I want to buy something between $350 and $375.
Okay.
And they might be able to go to XYZ city, let's say St. Cloud 56301, and there might be 7 options there.
Yep.
And they're looking at all of the pricing. And they say, well, we kind of like St. Joe too. Well, you got one.
Right.
So is it a buyer's market in St. Cloud and a seller's market in St. Joe? If they're willing to go to both places, yes.
Sure.
If somebody only wants to go to one place, then it changes. So that whole variable of getting really caught up into that statistic, is it a buyer's market or a seller's market? You got to look at what is the circumstance.
Okay, I made the mistake, and it was a mistake, of walking into the room and say, hey, I saw this report that it's now a buyer's market. And you guys looked at me like I just got off the spaceship from Mars, right? What the heck? So, again, people need to be careful what is in their head when they reach out to you.
I think it's our job to educate.
Yeah,
right? So
absolutely.
I don't think that that's a thing, but the gist of it is what you were getting at is the market has changed.
Yeah.
They weren't saying that before.
Right.
So the market has definitely changed, and there are things that impact both buyers and sellers. Buyers can buy a home that is better cared for and negotiate and see it 4 times before they actually put a purchase agreement in to make a conscientious decision.
Yeah.
And sellers are in a position that if they have taken excellent care of their home for the last 10 years and they're putting it on the market, they are in an advantage over somebody else that might be on the market. So I mean, there's a lot of dynamics that go into this, and whenever I sit down with somebody, they're like, how's the market? I'm like, well, it's changed. It's the most thing that I say ever, right? Every year I'm meeting with people, how's the market? Well, it's really changed. And it's changed from 2 months, it's changed from 2 years, it's changing all the time.
And it's different between the person you're talking to at that time, between the appointment you have at 3 in the afternoon.
It certainly is.
Yeah.
Every single person. So you have to uber focus on what the needs of the people are in there with their relationship.
So our world is like, I want it now. I want my gratification, 5 minutes ago, right? So do people have a hard time understanding all of this? Because it is so different for every person, every situation.
I don't think that most people would have a hard time understanding if they're willing to share what their circumstances are And I always try to break it down into very simple stories, like very simple scenarios, so that apply to them. So not talking at a high level of this is what's going on in the nation. What is going on in
their life
in that 2 mile radius where they ultimately want to be, and that's what you have to break it down into.
Okay, what you just said in one word, relationships.
Yes.
Okay, and we have talked about this in the past. The importance of having the relationship with your realtor so that when that house comes on the market, you can go, "Hey, Heidi,
yes.
I found it."
Yes. And then they might already at that point have met with us and know what their house is worth, or know that they're in a month-to-month lease, so they're ready to pull the trigger. I mean, all those things are those conversations, and looking at that, and we're having a lot of those conversations right now because a lot of people have to sell in order to buy. So there's a lot of coaching.
We talked about the national news media and all of that, right? So when you look at where mortgage rates were, ridiculous 2.5%, 3% to where they are today, reality hits in, right?
Yeah.
People need to understand that part of the business too, don't they?
Well, they do, but I think we simplify that. I like to try to simplify it as that it doesn't matter if you make $400,000 a year or if you make $40,000 a year. People buy a payment, whether it be a car or a house. We're going to go into that product and say, can I afford the payment and still live my life appropriately? And that is kind of across the board. And that's part of how we help people make some of those decisions.
All right, Heidi, let's develop the relationship with VoigtJohnson Real Estate by calling, texting. What do you want us to do?
Well, we would love to hear from you. You can call our office at 320-774-2400 or visit our website at Excellent Gallery of Agents as an option, VoigtJohnson.com.
Heidi, thank you.
Thank you.